Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the launch of the Agribusiness Deal Room at the AGRF 2020. We have a very exciting program for you with speakers from really across the ecosystem who will all share with us why they're part of the deal room, what some of their expectations and aspirations are, and really what their vision is for the mobilization of investments in African agriculture. The Deal Room is a matchmaking platform that has become catalytic in the context of agricultural transformation here in Africa. My name is Jennifer Baar, and I'm the head of partnerships at Agri. And together with our team here, the AGRF Secretariat and the partners, and over 20 partners, we have designed and are delivering the Deal Room year round. I, without further ado, actually would like to lead you to an exciting panel that we have that will share all of the wisdom and insights with you this morning. I would just like to also indicate that in case you might have any questions, don't hesitate to use the chat option to post them. We will pick them up as we move forward. So may I introduce you to Ms. Leslie Marbury, who's the Mission Director of USAID here in Rwanda, and who will be moderating the first panel for us. Leslie, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Good morning and welcome to Sequence One. This is the aspirations and expectations in engaging in the agribusiness deal room session. And this should be a high energy session. We're going to hear from 7 people on what they hope to get out of the deal room. We range from CEOs to development partners, and I'm really looking forward to hearing from all of them. I'm hoping, as the mission director from USAID in Rwanda, to learn a lot over the next couple of days about the needs of the private sector, especially impacted by COVID, and how we can play a better role at being catalytic for private sector investment. So my first speaker, and I'll ask you a question, is Zaina Mawad, the Senior Investment Officer for Agribusiness at IFC. Zaina, how are you seeing IFC's role in the deal room, and what are you hoping to get out of this experience?
Thank you very much, Leslie. Thank you, Jennifer. Hello, everyone. I'm very, very excited to be here. This is such an interesting way of interacting in these so special moments. And actually, IFC is a partner in the deal room, and it has been for the past 2 years. And this is something very important for us because it allows us to reach out to potential clients, stakeholders in the agribusiness sector in sub-Saharan Africa in different ways. And IFC is very much engaged in development and into financing agribusiness in Africa, and also supporting the various actors in it. And this is a very unique way of developing our reach, of trying to also learn from the clients that maybe we don't interact with on a daily basis, located in various regions, learn from them what is going on. And this takes another spice, I would say, in the COVID area, where we all have been less mobile, let's say, at the least. Some more like feeling more like a bit stuck in our various locations and homes. And so being able to interact this way is really something special. And learning about also what are the needs today, and how we as development institutions and other stakeholders can contribute to that. So at IFC, we have been engaging through various webinars. This is also something we're trying to adapt to the COVID area. And a few points I would like to highlight. So IFC has investment services, it has advisory services, and we have developed recently also an upstream service. So when we see potential developments more down the line, what we call like that are not ready for getting funding today immediately, but that they are important elements allowing us to believe that something can be done in the future. And this is something that we have started looking at. So we have also an upstream team, so an advisory and investment. I'm in the investment team. From our side, so what we are looking for in the agribusiness deal room is really those clients that we are able to support, and support means also contributing to a development impact. And this is something very important to us, trying to see how the projects that you have can also contribute to development, food security, and jobs in the various regions you work in.
Thank you so much. Next, I want to move to Miss Victoria Sabula, hear from the private sector, the CEO from AECF. What are your aspirations? What advice do you have for private sector companies that are coming into the deal room?
Thank you so much, Leslie. It's really great to be here and great to meet all of you. And thank you for everyone who's joined from across the globe. It's just great to see that we can still meet, even in times when every restriction tells us that we cannot move from wherever we are. It would have been great to be in Rwanda, but great to be able to do this. So really, the Africa Enterprise Challenge Fund has worked over the last many years to surface businesses and support them with capital and expertise to accelerate, to speed up, to expand, and to grow. And we have invested in about 292 businesses across the Sub-Sahara, specifically in the agribusiness and renewable energy sectors. And today in the deal room, we actually have some of the businesses that we've invested in over the years, AKM Glitters, eProd, Sibesonge, Equator, Kenya. And really, these and other businesses are those that really have shown what fit for purpose capital can do to businesses that have potential in the Sub-Sahara, and hence our strong belief in the need for unlocking capital to businesses that will solve for the development challenges that we are all seeking to solve. And you ask, what really are we looking forward to in this deal room today? Again, as I've said, we've invested in businesses over many years. And while we have done that, we learned very early on that it was one thing for there to be feeder funds like ourselves, but another thing altogether for there to actually be available investors that provide, commercial funds to these businesses so that they do not fall into the value of debt, and so our investments become zero. And we then, set up what is called Connect, which is a brokerage service that actually supports businesses to be investor ready and connects them with potential investors. And as therefore we look at what we have this morning, we are hoping that for the investors that are participating and all of the other businesses, that they will connect with suitable investors who resonate with their business models, growth plans, and are willing to support them with capital that is specifically aligned to their needs. We have known how tragic it is when a business gets the wrong investors. So the advice also that we've really had as AECF being a patient capital provider is the importance of businesses getting the right investor. It's not just about the availability of money. So don't take just every money that comes your way, but that investor is willing to be in the trenches and walk with you the journey, because as we all know, investments in the agribusiness sector is no child's play. The other thing that we are really looking forward to achieving in this is really that the companies will connect with other value chain players that will open up opportunities for sourcing, mentorship, markets, advisory services for their products and services and business growth. One of our investee companies, for example, Sibesonge, is an active company in Tanzania and has developed a value chain tool tracker and is looking to expand into, other markets. And we're just hoping that, they will be able to get that connection with other value chain players, and then their aspiration can actually come to reality. We do really recognize, though, that there are still a lot of challenges to be overcome by companies, and the companies need to be aware of that, and the investors as well. And I'll just mention two of them. Is that some of the times we recognize that companies may not be ready to engage with investee companies, especially in the sub-Sahara, and so the sophistication of the investor and sometimes just unpreparedness of the company to be able to present whatever really the investor requires. It's one thing to really have this great idea, but it's another thing to be able to do that which the investor wants to see, which is, do you have the business models? And for the investors that are here, for the partners that are in the panel today, please let's invest in helping businesses in the sub-Sahara to be investor ready. It's one thing to have capital available, but if we don't get these businesses actually to be investor ready, then our capital will just sit and not be able to get out and go to the hands of the entrepreneurs. And I think we just have to recognize that it is a risky continent, and we couldn't just assume that whatever could work in San Francisco will work in the sub-Sahara, and we just have to keep our expectations tamed, but be ready to do the pre-investment work that would be necessary to get our businesses in Africa ready for investments.
Thank you so much. That was fantastic. And really, it's exciting to think about finding the right matches. And I think that there'll be space for that this week. The next speaker is Mr. Chris Isaac, the Managing Director from AgDevco. What does success look like for you this week, Chris?
Good morning, everyone. A real pleasure to be with you. AgDevco, for those of you who don't know us, is a specialist investor in African agri-businesses. We write investment checks of between $2 million and $10 million as debt or equity. And we're working today with over 50 companies across 10 countries in sub-Saharan Africa. What do we believe, first of all? We believe that SMEs are the engine of growth and development everywhere. And secondly, we believe it all starts with agriculture. If you look at economies like Brazil and China, that's where a process of industrialization started. So the way we think of the agriculture sector is that it's a sector that doesn't only grow crops, it actually grows formal firms. And if you grow formal firms and create formal jobs, then you can kickstart a catalytic process of development, which will lift companies into high income status and move them beyond aid. So what are we looking for? Well, quite simply, we're looking for those pioneering businesses led by highly motivated, adaptable, resilient entrepreneurs with real ambition, with ambition to build their businesses to $10 million of revenue and beyond. And by doing so, demonstrate there are huge opportunities in African countries and blazing a trail for others to follow, because where pioneers lead, then the private sector takes note and others will come. And that's how you see clusters developing and you see a robust commercial agriculture sector developing. But you do need investors who are there to back those pioneering firms. And as Victoria has said so eloquently, there are risks. There is a need for patience. There's a need for flexibility. There's a need to accept that the first investors aren't necessarily going to get the highest returns. And that's where there's a role for the donor partners and the foundations and governments to provide support to those pioneering SMEs that are right at the start of a process of industrialization. They deserve every support that they can get. And then we can see rapid change. It's very exciting to be involved in the sector, because when something works, you see it develop very quickly, and you see it just start a process of change that can be very rapid. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is an exciting one. She's from the Gaia Foods, a 2020 deal room applicant. So Ms. Roseanne Mwangi, can you please tell us a little bit about your company and what you're expecting?
Thank you very much, Leslie, and good morning, everybody. Thank you very much. It's great to be in the room. My name is Roseanne Mwangi. I'm the Managing Director of Gaia Foods. Gaia Foods is a 20-year plus women-owned company that has seen itself grow. We are in the potato processing industry, And we are we are excited being in the deal room. And our aspiration is that our participation will spur interesting and catalytic conversations around our fundraise for investment. We are looking to get into new markets, unexplored territory in the the sub-Saharan African space. We want to get into processing of pre-fried frozen fries. And we're looking for 10 million USDs as a combination of equity and debt. And this will help us in increasing sourcing capacity and expand into the new product line of frozen fries. Such investments, of course, will spur economic growth. We're looking at good revenue streams that are going to be brought forth by that kind of an investment. And we're also looking for at social development. Through development of the potato industry and spin-offs to other interesting industries as well, such as insect for food and feed. Potato is definitely the food for the future. And I think in the potato, there is definitely something for everyone. And governments as well as the private sector and the investors are bound to benefit from this kind of an engagement. We're expecting to meet investors who are keen on interesting deals that address food, the growing food demands of African cities. When you go out, even at home, majority of people nowadays prefer to use potato as a meal, as opposed to the more traditional maize, and especially in Africa. And we want to provide the convenience of readily available potatoes for anyone and everyone who is able to get it. And we're also looking and expecting to inspire conversations around interesting nexuses of food systems of the 21st century. We're looking at focusing on processing, but also seeking synergies that are associated with responsible production and consumption. We want to explore opportunities that are presented by lower value process outputs, becoming valuable inputs for other higher value products. For instance, black soldier fly farming and the feed that is associated with that. There's also the element of leadership in complexity. We've just come from, or rather we are emerging from the COVID-19, and we want to highlight that as a key to sustainability. There's lots of skill gaps that are also available in this sector. And we are also looking at an attitude meter, especially with women-led SMEs. So we would want to also see attendant shifts in perception on this. So it's great to be here, and I'm looking forward to engaging interactions.
Thank you so much. Very specific, you know your dollar amount, you know exactly what you're trying to get out of this, and that's exciting. Our next speaker is Mr. William Asico, the Managing Director of the Africa Regional Office for the Rockefeller Foundation. And I'm interested to hear from you, Mr. Asico, on what Rockefeller Foundation, how are you planning to support the private sector who are here at the AGRF 2020? Over to you, William.
Thank you very much, Leslie, and thank you to the organizers for giving us this opportunity to be part of the Agribusiness Deal Room 2020. I have three very specific expectations. Those are also aligned with our organization's expectations with the deal room. The first is something that I have been very passionate about. I've been participating in the deal room, from the very beginning under different hats, and this year I'm participating as a Rockefeller. But Jennifer will know that I'm very, very keen that the deal room moves from being event focused to being a platform or a process by which the connections continue to be made post the event. I think it is really, really important that we take the work of previous years, but also the work and any deals or prospective deals that are made this year we find a way that makes sure we go forward with them, and the next deal room becomes a place where we measure where we are and perhaps make new commitments. That requires a whole organization, behind the scenes, working on making those connections and making sure that the deals are moving forward. So that's really the first expectations. And, as Rockefeller, we're prepared to support that. The second is that, too often we hear about idle capital or capital looking for projects on the one hand, and on the other hand, we hear about entrepreneurs with great ideas, particularly in the SME space, that are unable to raise capital for their projects. And I think, Victoria mentioned that as being, one of the challenges. How do we overcome this challenge of getting entrepreneurs with good ideas that could create employment, move value chains forward, and get these, project ready in a sustainable manner? Now, obviously, the challenge usually is that, financiers or investors are not prepared to invest in these sort of technical assistance kind of requirements. Business cases, getting an idea from an idea to something viable. Is there actually a market for this idea? Is this a solution to an existing problem? Something that shows that this is a viable commercial operation. Sometimes investors are not prepared to do that. And, sometimes with the IFC and other big investors, the ticket size is too small for them to provide these sort of business advisory services. So these are a critical component of getting deals to the table. And we've got to look for ways to finance them. And I think that Chris was right in his statement that this is perhaps an area for development finance, the kind of work that we do at Rockefeller. And one of the things that we've done is to work to establish an accelerator fund for SMEs, which will do exactly that, to provide this technical assistance to get projects investment ready. In a continent like Africa, where we still see high levels of food insecurity and malnutrition, we cannot ignore the fact that there are also rising incidents of non-communicable diseases, obesity in certain areas, and this cannot be ignored. And I think that largely a lot of these are being caused by the diets. Highly processed foods, and this is not to take anything away from Roseanne and the great work that she's doing, but highly processed foods are cheap, they're available, the value chains have been highly developed, and of course, they're affordable to many people in the population. But often some of these foods, not all, some of these foods are, high in calories, they're not nutritious, and they're not taken as part of a balanced diet. And so I think as we look at opportunities for investment and moving the needle forward on deals in Africa, I think we have to take account of making nutritious foods, nutritious diets more available in a manner that protects the environment. And again, this is an area the Rockefeller Foundation is working on and be very happy to support. Thank you very much for that opportunity.
Thank you so much. They were all points that we could spend hours discussing. But thank you for being so succinct. For our next speaker is Dr. Thoraya Triki, the director from the Sustainable Markets and Institutions Division at IFAD. And in just a few minutes, we would love to hear your aspirations and maybe what actions you're hoping come out of the AGRF this year.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Leslie. Good morning, everybody. It's really exciting to be part of this discussion. As you said, Leslie, we need hours rather than minutes to discuss this issue. So maybe I would like to start by a few words about IFAD. For those who don't know us, IFAD is an international financial institution and this specialized agency of the United Nations that was created in the mid-70s to fight poverty and hunger in the rural areas of developing countries. So we're very proud to be the second largest investor in agriculture in terms of concessional official development assistance. And for 40 years, we've been providing a lot of funding, mainly through the governments. Recently, we have opened up to provide direct funding to the private sector. And this is one of the reasons why we're here also today talking about business, because we believe the business case for investment in African food and agriculture is as strong as ever today. despite the COVID-19. And of course, investment is not an end in itself. At stake is how we use different types of capital to nurture the vibrant, inclusive, and sustainable food systems across the continent. But investment requires also an enabling environment, and we are all very familiar with the importance of public goods, conducive policy frameworks for a business climate. Less appreciated very often is, but what I believe is also critical, is the strengthening of connections across actors involved in food and agriculture, be it investors and regulators, investors and businesses, including SMEs and farmer-led organizations. So it's often said that the lack of sufficient investment in agriculture in Africa is not a matter of lack of finance, but rather of investable investment opportunities. And in my experience, it's actually a bit of both. So there is a need for more and better and more tailored financial solution, but also better businesses. And there is also a great need to facilitate both by bridging the different parts of the landscape together to better understand each other, identify the gaps, and address them together with support from regulators, development institutions, and private actors. So that leads me to answer your question, and sorry if I was long. IFAD is very proud to be an AGRF partner and the co-chair of the AGRF thematic group on the Deal Room. For breadth, ambition, and long-term focus beyond matchmaking, we believe that it's very hard to find another initiative like compared to the Deal Room. So for IFAD as an international financial institution, an investor and a facilitator of investment alongside governments, farmers, and the private sector, the Deal Room is a strategic space to engage in, to seek new opportunities, form new partnerships, and better understand the needs of both those who are looking for funding, like the lady that we just heard, entrepreneurs, and also deploy our new private sector finance capabilities to the most catalytic effect. Partnerships are equally important because we believe in collective action. So to conclude this very small introduction, I would like to reiterate IFAD's commitment to promote inclusive and sustainable food systems, to really work with the different partners that are part of this Deal Room, and be it entrepreneurs or other actors that we heard who are listening to us. And together, I'm confident that we will find creative solutions. As Travis Kalanick, the Uber's co-founder, once said, every problem has a solution. You just have to be creative enough to find it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. The final speaker for this sequence is the U.S. ambassador to the Republic of Rwanda. So my ambassador, who is also here in Kigali. And it's a real honor to introduce you, Ambassador. I happen to know how passionate you are about investment in agriculture and Rwanda, and know that you spent yesterday listening to a lot of the sessions. So if you can just give a few remarks to get us really ready and help open this Deal Room. Over to you, Ambassador.
Thank you very much, Leslie, and very happy to be here in the host country for the AGRF 2020. And I hope that this Deal Room and the other sessions will really provide an opportunity for Rwanda's successes to be showcased, and so that others can learn, and that Rwandans can learn as well and make deals with folks across the continent. One of the things in this panel that I took away, and I'm glad I got to be the last one to speak, but the verbs that were used. I particularly like Chris's idea of agriculture kickstarting other service industries. And I apologize for the boring background here. I'd hoped to be outside with my chickens, but unfortunately, the Kachiro is no longer an agricultural area, and there's a lot of industrial sounds and transportation sounds, so I'm inside. But that said, I also heard the conversation from Roseanne talking about catalytic conversations, and that's really what I think all of us here are talking about, trying to bridge between the investors, governments or donors, and development finance institutions that are multilateral or continental, and the actual businesses that are doing things, whether it's fries, whether it's, I'm really interested in the food, insects for food or feed. That is really critical, that people can learn in these type of sessions, whether it's virtual or those who are at the convention center, to learn from each other and how to make best practices. The private sector, I think everyone agrees, all of the people who've spoken on this panel, is going to, and the World Bank as well, if they were here, IFC is here, to accelerate Rwanda's growth towards self-reliance and upper middle income status. And that's the goal of many countries across the continent and frankly across the globe. And the pathways are quite well known. The particularities of each country are unique, however. And one of the things that we, and again, USAID as one of the deal makers in this deal room, but we also are part of a deal team at our embassy. And that idea is to find out ways to help, as many of the panelists said, how do you get businesses ready for the market, for their own country, for the region and the globe? And that takes a lot of support, helping people with business plans, ideas, those catalytic conversations, and then to also educate the financial institutions, whether they're the multilateral ones or individual banks. The problem isn't the question of capital. And I think that's a point that, if I remember correctly, but that Zaina mentioned, that the banks have money and the funds have money, but putting them productive use takes the type of conversation so that it doesn't go to waste and so that good ideas can be put into practice. That's what we're doing here in Rwanda with a program called Inguriza Nshore, which means lend so we can invest. And it really means holding the hands of some businesses, but also matchmaking and making sure banks understand the risk proposition and the wealth proposition that is proposed. I'll give you just in closing one example of how that was successful. There's a company called Brioche here in Kigali that makes croissant. And even with all the costs of inputs and labor, they are able to make croissants, freeze them. Again, the frozen foods may be the future in this region, and ship them across 2 countries to Kenya, where they fly out on Air France flights back to Europe to feed the passengers on those flights. Now, obviously, in the time of COVID, those type of stories and those type of challenges are being threatened by the pandemic, as is food security, as I think the colleague from the Rockefeller Foundation mentioned. So we have to find ways that touch the small farmer, from the coffee grower, the tea producer, all the way up to the agribusinesses that will then jumpstart a middle income economy. So thank you very much. We hope that the deal room will really bridge and make some of these connections, and that those who are on the other end who are helping finance can learn from what are some of the real ideas on the ground on the continent that can help spark economic growth even in this time of COVID. So thank you very much, Leslie.
Thank you, Ambassador. I'm smiling ear to ear with the branding. Thank you for creating that vision for us on what investment can look like in this part of Africa, and for giving the specific example of where it works. Jennifer, I believe that we have done a pretty great job on timing, thanks to our amazing, succinct panelists and speakers. So I will hand it back over to you and close out this sequence.
Thank you so much, Leslie. This was really an amazing round of statements. And it's really exciting to hear all of these different comments. I do have some feedback actually from our technical team who's live on the ground. The link to the Kigali Convention Center is not established yet. So the good news for us is that we can still continue with this panel for a few more minutes until we basically get clearance from them to link to our next set of speakers on the ground, which are the CEO of the Rwanda Development Board, our Vice President, Vanessa Adams, and also the President of Agri, who are actually waiting for the second sequence. So I think, Leslie, if there's some interesting questions coming through from different participants, and you probably would also have 1 or 2 follow-up questions for the panelists. But I think that before going to that, I would just like to give people an impression of what we're talking about when we're talking about the Agribusiness Deal Room at the AGRF 2020. So here are just a few statistics. At this point in time, we have over 3,000 people who are actively engaging on the platform itself, and they really come from a wide range, from private sector and quite a number of different stakeholder groups, corporates, governments, etc. Our knowledge partners and governments are hosting 39 meetings to pitch investment opportunities and share knowledge and insights. And we have over 208 SMEs assessed, with investment needs of 532 million from 27 African countries. So that is really just some highlights and statistics coming from the deal room, and there are over 1,000 meetings scheduled for the coming days. So everybody's encouraged to really take part and start to engage. We have 15 governments pitching, also over 20 value chains worth billions of dollars of investment opportunities in the coming days. So everybody's really encouraged to register at the AGRF deal room website to participate in all these different pitch sessions. So Leslie, I'm counting again on you as a moderator to perhaps ask a couple of questions to some of our panelists as we're waiting for the convention center to come in live into this chat. Thank you.
Perfect, thank you. And I'm lucky, I have a couple of questions that have come in. So I'll just reflect those back to the panelists. And the first one is a very practical question for our colleague from IFC. And that is really, how do you submit potential investment opportunities to IFC?
Thank you very much, Leslie. So it's you can reach out. There's to me first, and also to anyone depending on the region where you are located. So you have on our website the contact people for each country, for each region. So you can reach out to that person. Maybe I'll use this to provide a bit of insight on what we look for. So typically, IFC looks at investments that are projects, at least, that are of minimum $10 million. We can go, of which we would finance 5 million at least. We can sometimes look at smaller deals when there's a very important development impact or outgrowers, farmers, producers component, where we would be getting some blended finance. We look at expansion projects mainly, but we can also look at greenfield if the sponsors are really strong. And the main condition is really for the project to show competitiveness. We look at projects that have a competitive edge, that have a business case that is compelling. And so that is really the first 3 main criterias. And then there are 4 that are very important. First, it's the development impact, as I mentioned earlier. We look at the project outcome. What are the stakeholders trying to achieve? Second, we look at the environmental and social impacts and how the projects are addressing those. Third, of course, what the sponsors and the stakeholders are willing to put as security and support for the financing structure. And fourth, the ethics of the sponsors and the reputation around the project. So these are really what we look for. Typically, we would want to have a first conversation, have some kind of business plan provided, showing the main metrics of the project, main ratios. And yeah, that's basically it. So it's quite easy to reach out to. We always respond. So yeah, please do not hesitate to reach out. Thank you.
That was great. Thank you. And very practical. And thanks for adding what you're looking for, because I think everyone wants to know that as well.
Dear delegates and distinguished guests, it gives me great pleasure to be part of the opening of the 2020 AGRF Deal Room. Over the past 3 years, the Deal Room has shown its value addition, becoming an important space for identifying new investment opportunities and partnerships. IFAD applauds the AGRF and will continue to do its part in promoting African agribusiness and facilitating partnership that benefits small-scale producers and the private sector alike. The COVID-19 pandemic has highlighted many weaknesses in both global and African food systems. It has also reinforced the fact that Africa needs an advanced, inclusive, and sustainable food system. That is why today, we will be exploring agribusiness investment opportunities that meet the growing demand for food in Africa, and why we are championing access to finance, especially for women, youth, and small to medium scale enterprises. Agribusiness is expected to become a $1 trillion industry. Our collective belief is that Africa's small and medium-sized agribusinesses and agri-entrepreneurs have huge potential to feed Africa's hungry, employ Africa's youth, and contribute to stronger and more inclusive and equitable economies. This is fundamental. I strongly believe that the partnerships formed in the deal room will help agribusiness deliver on its promise to transform Africa economically, environmentally, and socially. As you may know, IFAD is the second largest investor in agriculture after IDA, and we are unique in targeting and working with the poorest rural communities. Half our investment portfolio covers Africa. Globally, IFAD support helps 20 million small-scale producers raise their income by at least 20% every year. In recent years, we have strengthened our capacity to engage with private partners and mobilize resources to end extreme poverty and hunger. Today, these investments are being shaped around the COVID-19 response and the need to create more resilient livelihoods. We see opportunities to invest in business models that help markets function more smoothly, in data systems for better risk management, in digital platforms for efficiency and transparency, and in access to inclusive finance, markets, and institutions. The deal room offers the space to develop new partnerships for investment that are effective, impactful, sustainable, and inclusive. I am honored to be part of its opening, and I wish all participants and the organizers a successful event.
That was a word of encouragement from President Humbo, from IFAD, the president of IFAD. IFAD and USA, together with AGRA, are the co-chairs of the Finance and Agribusiness Thematic Working Group of the AGRF, and have taken the lead really in organizing the Agribusiness Deal Room together with our 20 partners. And I think it's very important that we just really take a moment to thank all of these different partners who have been engaged in opening the deal room. And just as I'm naming all these names, please be patient with us, because this is a partnership that really works year-round, just like William Asico stated, in order to not only build the pipeline, but deliver the deal room, and actually also monitor this afterwards, and even providing transaction facilitation. We're very keen to step this effort up over the coming 12 months. In case you're interested, you're more than welcome. So really on behalf of the thematic working group, we would like to thank the government of Rwanda, the AGRF Secretariat, AGRA, USAID and IFAD are co-chairs, UK Aid, Rockefeller Foundation, IDH, Grow Africa, the Africa Development Bank, TBI, ACF, and TBI stands for the Tony Blair Institution, ACF, Cross Boundary, our technical implementing partner, the World Economic Forum, CASA, which is a UK-led program for investment facilitation, Bonreso, our technical lead, the Global Alliance for Improved Nutrition, Generation Africa, responsible for a lot of youthful engagement in the agribusiness deal room. 30% of our SMEs participating in the deal room can be classified as youth entrepreneurs. And I'm happy to state that 57% actually is led by women and female entrepreneurs. The IFC, led by Saina, but also Tanager and KPMG, often partners who in country are actually working together with our country managers and other partners to mobilize and support governments in delivering on the deal room. I also wanted to just emphasize the government pitch sessions, because I think that is very important, building on some of the flagship work that AGRA partners and others are doing in working with African governments to strengthen their capacity and capability to be a supportive partner and create the enabling environment for investments to happen. And if I can just give a couple of examples of some of the investments that will actually be passing in the pitch sessions in the deal room in the coming days. So we will have, for example, the government of Burkina Faso presenting US $2 billion rights initiative that will also have an impact regionally. From the government of Ghana, which is happening later today, they're looking at poultry investments that aim to considerably reduce 350,000 metric tons of poultry imports this year. Yesterday, we had a very interesting poultry session with investors and governments who are really trying to drive the poultry and the animal feed industry across the continent. I think I estimate that if you just look in terms of capital asset investments and all the investors that were present in that session as panelists, we're talking about almost $1 billion of assets that they have invested over the past years into the poultry and animal feed sector across the continent. So poultry is really a red thread throughout the country session and the pitch presentations that will be taking place today, tomorrow, on Thursday and Friday. Another example, the Mozambique flagship program that is really focusing on women and youth and are targeting almost 2 million rural jobs, of which 1 million will be youth. The Mozambique government has worked with our partners to translate all of that in concrete investment opportunities in several sectors. I already spoke about animal feed and poultry production. It's also the Ethiopian government who will be presenting some of these investment opportunities in the coming days. So as you can see, it's a very, very rich program. We'll also be talking about resilience and sustainability in the context of COVID-19. What are some of the challenges, but also opportunities to translate some of these risks into actual financial service products and investments. We will have some insurance companies, banks, and also other stakeholders and companies talking about what it is that they've been doing in that context. So as you can see, it's a very rich program. We're very happy actually with what's happening. I'm hearing that we can go live.
Turn the switch on.
We can go to the KFC. Vanessa Adams, Vice President of AGRA, I'm handing it over to you and really happy to have you on board. Thank you very much, panel.
Thank you so much. This is a very exciting moment. We've been waiting all day, all night, all year to launch the Agribusiness Deal Room and the AGRF. And I am sitting here with Dr. Agnes Kalibata, who needs no introduction to any of you. And of course, Claire Azikman, who is with the Rwanda Development Board. We're so happy you could be with us today, Claire, live in person from Kigali.
Very happy to be here.
Wonderful, wonderful for you to be here, representing Rwanda, representing all the countries across Africa who will be themselves presenting this week opportunities for investing in agriculture.
Sure.
So my very first question, which is, of course, to Dr. Kalibata, you have been fighting for agriculture and food in Africa for so many years, and you remain positive and absolutely confident. So tell us, why invest in agriculture? Why do you keep fighting for this?
Thank you, Vanessa. Let me start by, excuse me. So let me start by really recognizing and thanking you, Claire. I've worked with Claire in the past, and I know she's one of those believers, not necessarily in agriculture, a little bit in agriculture.
Not only in agriculture.
But she's really worked very hard to get investments going, and she has a number of investments, that she has seen come through. And I really hope that as we go into this meeting, a lot of people can also learn from your own experience. So really, really happy to be with you on this panel. So going back to the agriculture sector, I mean, President Humbo of IFAD just mentioned that agriculture is agribusiness, and agriculture is $1 trillion industry. That's the basis basically of the Feed Africa strategy the African Development Bank runs as well. I just wanted to mention a few things. I mean, just think about it. Each of us makes, or at least plans, to eat 3 times a day. That's a huge business opportunity.
At least.
Plans. We have, when you look at Africa as a continent, we have the fastest urbanizing, we are called the fastest urbanizing continent.
Yeah.
So the opportunity to really ensure that we have affordable food in our cities is a huge business opportunity. There are a number of other opportunities. I mean, when you look at our continent, it's also the fastest growing. Most of the fastest growing countries are here in Africa. Huge opportunity as well for growth. But there are two things that really, for me, underscore the huge opportunities of the agricultural sector. The fact that we now are the youngest continent on the globe with a huge population of young people that is actually educated. So a huge skilled population is coming up in Africa and provides a huge opportunity for us to invest in agribusiness. By the way, 50% of the people that are farming and in agribusiness are already young people. So that's the basis of the opportunity. The second basis, our food systems are changing. We're at crossroads. We need to be changing our food systems. And who better than these young people? And what a better time than have agripreneurs, entrepreneurs look at the opportunities that these changes will bring, because we now agree that it is very, very important to shift our food system. So the people that have great ideas, the people that are business savvy, that are ready to jump on these ideas, are definitely going to see these opportunities and take advantage of them. So those are the things that I see. But also, probably the last, Africa has so many people that live in agriculture. The rest of the world today is struggling with, the economies are struggling because people are not spending. Africa's spending power is locked up in these people. We need to move agriculture to become the spending engine of our continent. And we can do that.
Excellent. Wonderful. I'm ready. I'm almost ready to write a check, but I don't know where to put my money. Can you help us, Claire? I mean, how can I decide? If I'm an investor and I'm a multilateral, and how do I decide where do I put my investment? How do you tell people what to invest in and really why to come to Africa, why Rwanda?
Why Rwanda? Thank you very much, Vanessa. And let me start by thanking AGRA for organizing this forum. I think they've been very innovative at about both having a hybrid session in Kigali and also online. And I think with the pandemic and the very specific circumstances we are being called to be innovative. And I think this is one way of innovation that we've seen with AGRF. We're also very pleased as Rwanda to be hosting AGRF headquarters that was recently decided, and we're very happy to be associated with this going forward. Now, I'm also very pleased that we're discussing a deal room approach to agriculture, because when I see the topics that the deal room is looking at, whether it's access to finance by women or whether it's technology in agriculture or feeding in cities, these are very pertinent topics and very many investment opportunities that arise from these discussions that we see today. But going back to your question, Vanessa, why Rwanda, why Africa? And I think Dr. Kalibata did touch on why Africa, whether it's the population, both on the workforce side, but also on the consumption side. We see a very big population of 1.2 billion, a key market, which is something that you can't ignore, underpinned by very specific integration agreements that we have, such as the Continental Free Trade Area. And then, so on the consumption side, but also on the land side, this figure of 60% of arable land, I think everybody has heard of that. But there's really raw materials and resources that Africa has to underpin such opportunities. But let me go maybe to give Rwanda as a specific example. When we talk to investors, what do we tell them about investing in Rwanda, which I think is a good example for the rest of the continent as well, very similar situations. Now, for Rwanda, I think one thing that we really underpin is that we're a low-risk country. If you look at safety index, if you look at governance structures, we like to say Rwanda is one place where women can walk freely at night, and we're ranked 5th safest place for a girl or woman to work. So you can work freely, you can farm freely, and there's safety in the environment for you to do that. If you look at also just the economy in general, the Fitch rating that was released recently for Rwanda was B+ with a stable outlook. Again, very, very good fundamental economic indicators. And also also just the fact that Rwanda is growing among the fastest countries on the continent. And again, Dr. Kalibata did talk about fast-growing continent. And I think Rwanda is an example of the continent that we see with that optimism. Last year, we grew at 9.4%, which was among the highest economic growth rates. So if you're investing in agriculture and investing in Rwanda, you actually see that you're growing with Africa, with the continent. Now, of course, COVID-19 brought a different story, and we shall put that on the side for now. But I think the outlook, even from what Fitch said, to managing the COVID-19 effects and being able to continue with the plans for growth has been very clear for Rwanda. But let me also talk about the business environment. Obviously, if you're going to invest in agriculture, you want to make sure that you have the correct conducive environment for doing that. And I think the African continent has been one of those that has been committed to improving their business environment. And Rwanda is one example as well. If you look at our property rights, for example, if you're going to be in agriculture, you want to make sure that you can transfer your land quickly, you can transfer your property quickly, and you can use it as collateral if you go and borrow money from a bank. These are things that we've made really, really easy, and we've automated. Rwanda today is ranked the third easiest place to transfer property or transfer land because it takes less than 2 weeks to do that from start to finish. We've also made it very easy to use not just fixed collateral such as land to get a loan, but you can use your movable property as well. And there's a law, there's a system, there's an online structure to do that. You can get your crops or your inventory in your stores and use that as collateral to borrow. And there is an infrastructure, both legal and automated, that can actually allow you to access banking and use, your property or your crops as collateral. So this business environment has been very crucial in attracting investors to come to Rwanda.
I'm more than convinced, but I have a few small doubts in my mind. A little bit of experience and a few good friends have told me that once they have an idea and they're convinced about an investment, then the hard work has only begun.
Yes.
And maybe Dr. Kalibata, you can tell us from your experience, how can private companies work better with governments to work through this very challenging investment process? Once the idea is there, turning it into a steady, profitable business reality. What do you think?
So Claire has described the process that seems pretty simple when she's describing it. I just want to say that there's so much hard work, that goes into all those processes that she's talked about, whether it's ensuring that there's a land system that works, whether it's ensuring that the policy and political environment works. All these things take a whole lot of energy and a whole lot of time. And I really don't want it to sound as simple as the way it is described. It's extremely complicated. So recognizing that complexity from where I sit as an institution, Agri as an institution that works from the continental perspective, we look at countries like Rwanda, we look at countries like Ethiopia, we look at countries like Ghana that are making progress in some of these areas of working with the private sector. And we look at the milestones they've achieved and how they achieve them. And we use that opportunity and that learning to help countries that are struggling to make this happen, to document some of these efforts and make sure that countries have an opportunity to learn from them, but also to create learning opportunities between the country and the country. So I would say that from where Agri is sitting, the biggest opportunity is the D-room opportunity, where we say businesses in Africa are struggling, sometimes from capacity perspective, sometimes for a resource perspective, but there are also people that are looking to invest on this continent, and they want to know where the big ideas are, and they want to know where the political environment is right, and they want to know where the policy environment is right, and they want to know where it is safe. So we help make those matches. That's the idea of the D-room. But also, really creating enough visibility for all the countries to have a sense of what it takes. Also creating enough visibility for businesses to understand what is happening on the ground. So the D-room idea really is where some of this comes together in terms of how countries can learn from each other, how businesses can learn from each other, and how opportunities can be profiled. It's extremely difficult to get businesses off the ground, but it becomes so much easier when you have a partner or partners, and Agri is not working alone, or partners that are willing to show you what is possible, that are willing to profile countries that are interested in putting businesses forward, and that are willing to walk the journey with you. Agri works on behalf of smallholder farmers. We 100% believe in smallholder farmers. in making that environment viable. So what we do from a viability perspective is to strengthen SME capacity around them, but also to strengthen capacities of businesses, the business environment, so that the agricultural sector can move forward. But I'm sure Claire, from a very live perspective, has more examples of what it takes to make those type of deals work.
So I'm taking advantage of our technical platform being live to go over time by a few minutes. So I'm warning everyone, we have yet 2 more critical questions, which tee up the whole week. And really, from my perspective, the challenge that we want to set aside of COVID is right in front of us, right? Sure. It's causing everyone to have more angst than usual, right? On every level, whether it's our children asking us, what's going to happen next, for schools to stay open, for airplanes to keep flying, even at every level. And yet, Africa has had so many interesting and different challenges. And Rwanda is, of course, a prime example of overcoming challenges. And bringing investment is a way of also of showing that there is actually a way to be profitable, a way for youth to be engaged, like you mentioned. We have this fantastic competition with the go-getters, which will be tomorrow, right? With the pitches, where we have more than 800 companies who logged into the deal room, set up their profiles, right? So what do you think is the key to closing the deal? Mm-hmm. Everything is ripe and ready, and we have this nervousness. What do people do? What do governments do? What do companies do? How do we finally close the deal?
Mm-hmm. So I think first of all, the role of government is very important. And again, when I talked about some of the business reforms that we talked about, the process of facilitating or simplification of business environment is not simple at all. It's a difficult but very doable, as we've seen in Rwanda, and as we've seen that nobody's going to come and solve these issues for you. As a government, as a people, as private sector, we need to come together to resolve these issues. So I think 2 things are very important when you think about closing deals. One is partnerships, and the other is coordination. On partnerships, it's extremely important, as we've seen, that if you're going to create an ecosystem that works, you bring all the key players together. We have agriculture projects where we bring the government to provide the leadership and the vision of what's needed at the very top level. And then you have private sector, public-private partnerships. We have a few projects we're going to be showing in the deal room for Rwanda. One of them is GACO, which is a meat processing facility, combination of government and private sector. Government does the irrigation, does the infrastructure, puts a road, electricity and water. Private sector brings the money to invest in the beef processing, and we'll be showing that example. Another one is Agri, same thing, infrastructure by government, but also coordinating, because you have communities that have land, you have local government who brings and convenes those together so that each one does their part. So that level of partnerships are extremely important. The other example I want to give on partnership that is really important is also, how do you bring partners to resolve issues that you have? One of the ones we have is skills. How do you bring skills to teach agriculture best practices? One example we have is a partnership with Howard Buffett Foundation, a philanthropic organization, again, another segment of partnership, that came into Rwanda and built the Rwanda Institute for Conservation Agriculture, again, to bring those skills and to make them available in the country. So this level of partnerships, and I think government has a big role in bringing the philanthropy, bringing the private sector, bringing the government together and do partnerships that actually solve issues, but get you to where you want to be, which is attracting investments in agriculture. The second one is coordination. Now, when you think about doing all these things, how do you actually put systems that allow coordination to happen? One example I'd like to give is in Gabiro. Gabiro was a project we had for irrigation to clear about 15,000 hectares of land in different phases. What we needed to do is to bring not just the partners communities, but also to be able to coordinate within government, because you have Agriculture Ministry, you have Rwanda Development Board, you have Finance Ministry. Each of them had a role to play. Finance Ministry to provide financing for infrastructure. You had local government. And so what we did is created a steering committee that had all the key players for this one project. So they met weekly, discussed specific issues. And because of that coordination and steering committee, supported by skilled people. So part of the steering committee was a team of negotiators, financial analysts, and legal, who are looking at these aspects. What agreements are needed? How do you negotiate? How do you bring very highly skilled financial analysts to do models that will make investors see that this thing can work, and also make government invest because they know that it works? So partnerships and coordination, I think, very key, underpinned by proper skills of people to negotiate and close deals. Thank you.
Such an inspiring, exciting, huge opportunities this week. We have 15 country sessions. We hope that all 50 of our investors and the 80-something multilaterals, which are all in the deal room, will come in and join in this investment partnership opportunities. We continue with it throughout the AGRF, but even throughout the year, to hope to mobilize even more investment in agriculture and in food and in feeding people, whether they be in a rural environment or an urban environment, and making it, of course, sustainable.